Good morning. I'm John Healey. I'm the new UK Defence Minister. And at this time of my first NATO Defence Ministers meeting here in Brussels, it comes at a time when the UK's unshakable commitment to NATO could never be more important. And at a time of growing Russian aggression and increasing wider threats, today we will make the commitment to reinforce NATO's eastern flank with a new plan alongside Estonia for our forces there. And we will make a commitment, a UK commitment, to bolstering the future of Europe's defences, leading a new initiative to net together the European air defence systems and to work together with other European allies to develop long-range missiles. This is part of the UK's new determination to work more closely with other European allies on security for the future. And Europe's security is guaranteed by this NATO alliance. Thank you. Yes.
What are your thoughts on Ukraine's victory plan that was introduced by President Zelensky? Is it realistic to implement?
I'm pleased that President Zelensky came last week to London to brief me and the British Prime Minister on the victory plan. It's very important he's here in Brussels to brief NATO defence ministers today. The message will be quite clear. We, as Ukraine supporters, must do everything we can to step up our support for Ukraine in the weeks and months ahead, to put more pressure on Russia, to ensure that Ukraine can prevail, because the defence of Europe starts in Ukraine. They're fighting for the same values and same beliefs and same freedoms that we prize, and we owe them that duty to stand with them for as long as it takes.
What can you give President Zelensky on his way home? What new promises can you provide?
Well, we've been a UK government for just 3 months now. On day 2 in my job, I was in Odessa with President Zelensky because Ukraine is a first-order priority for me as the UK Defence Secretary and for the UK government. So we've stepped up our UK support for Ukraine, military aid. We've stepped up the production of fresh weapons, including air defence systems, which the Ukraine are asking for. And we've also struck a new treaty for export guarantees and industrial production. And in that way, like other allies together, we can help with the provision of military aid now and the production of what Ukraine needs in the weeks and months ahead.
Today is also the meeting of the AP4 countries together with the allies. Which strategy should the NATO adopt here together with its partners when it comes to China, who has become militarily involved also in the Ukrainian conflict?
Look, I'm delighted we've got the 4 defence ministers from the IP4 here with us today at NATO. It stresses for me 2 things. First of all, that the security of the North Atlantic is indivisible from the security of the Indo-Pacific. So the concerns about the Indo-Pacific are also concerns for NATO nations. And secondly, with President Zelensky here, some of the staunchest supporters for Ukraine's fight for freedom have been countries like the IP4 that are not in the NATO area, but in the Indo-Pacific area. They're fighting and they stand for the same freedoms and values that we do. And Ukraine's fight is also their fight. Thank you very much.
One last question.
That's all right? Yeah, how are you?
2 Jahren vorgesehen und da sagt Deutschland jetzt irgendwie, wollen wir das auch schneller machen? Minister of Lithuania, Defense Minister of Lithuania.
Lithuanian-Belarus border. Do you fix any activity of Belarusian troops, or how it looks the situation with illegal migrants on your border?
Illegal migration now, the situation is quite stable. I think we implemented the tools who let us stabilize and control the situation. Now we have a new phenomena which is connected to smuggling. We're using now not the drones for the smuggling, but the meteorological balloons. And we're bringing the cigarettes to our country by the balloons who are not controlled. But anyway, we are like create the risk for, especially for civilian aviation. So now we're implementing the tools against smuggling networks, but also, sending the signals to the Belarusian side to stop that kind of activities, because it creates the risk for civilian aviation.
And what about troops? Do you fix any activity?
Not expected. I mean, everything according to the traditional plans. We know very well what our intelligence is strong enough to have clear indicators where is a training exercises, where is a real threat. So now, at this moment, we don't feel nothing unusual. But you always should be prepared.
Thank you.
Of the President Zelensky's victory plan, and more specifically his demand to get an invitation from NATO within the next year?
Very positive. I think invitation, first of all, it is not membership. Invitation is just a first stage, showing the Ukrainian nation that Russia does not have the veto power on the NATO enlargement. It's very important to send a message to Ukrainian nation which fights now for all our security, but they in the future can have a membership in NATO. But invitation is a first stage. And if you give an invitation, it's real irreversible page of history. So it's a real, not in wordings, just in conclusions, but it's a real irreversibility on point of no return. And sending the message to Russia, but we don't have the veto power, informal veto power on NATO and NATO enlargement. But in this plan, there are also other important aspects, like, for example, to help to Ukraine right now. We know what NATO countries has the resources to do it more and more effectively.
But the Secretary General was very reluctant.
Now? So would you advocate giving this invitation now, as
I would
he's
give,
asking?
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Secretary General Rutte was reluctant on giving a timeline for this invitation. Why is that? Why are there still bottlenecks among some of the allies?
Many countries, many approaches, many views, and you need to find the common ground. We are Baltics, we Lithuania, we understand the situation, and we have, if you want to stop Russia, if you want to break their military machine, you need to support Ukraine, and it's the best way to break this machine. If you want to push Russians back from the NATO territory, from even idea to test NATO, the best way to do it is support to Ukraine in every means. It's military support and also political support as invitation to NATO.
Plan from Zelensky, it looks like he's putting now responsibility for victory or for success in the hands of Western world. Is it right to say it's now your responsibility?
I think the real situation about the Ukrainian nation is fighting and dying. For their independence, but also, as I said, we're pushing back Russians every day. Every day. You can imagine if it will be de facto frozen, how Russia can be reestablish their powers and to try to test in some years even NATO territory. So Ukrainians are fighting for our security too. That's why it's quite normal to ask for support, at least with little support. And of course to give all permissions to hit the targets inside of Russia if it's connected to with military aggression on Ukraine. What we are doing, we don't have long-range missiles, but we have the resources allocated and now negotiating with Ukrainians for the contract their ballistic missiles who can hit Russian targets. So we will invest into the Ukrainian defense. So this is one of options. If you have some restrictions, what you can do, you can invest into Ukrainian defense industry and don't have any internal red lines.
What would you like to see NATO do in terms of air defense of the front line of your country and the Baltic states, given the increasing number of incursions, including of armed drones coming into the NATO airspace?
We have confirmed in Vilnius, now reconfirmed with additional details in Washington summit, the rotational air defense model, which is to the all eastern flank, but especially to the Baltics. So we had one success story, and I want to thank Netherlands, who deployed the Patriot system, which were plugged in Lithuanian air defense systems with NASAM systems on summer, and we had good training, and I think it was a good experience. And now we are working on such kind of trainings could be more and more and more. So we are talking with many now NATO countries to deploy at least for trainings, at least for a short time, via ground-based air defense forces. Also, we are investing in ourselves. Just last week, we signed 2 new contracts on mobile short-range air defense system with Swedish Saab on M-Shorts, and also NASAMS. It's a third battery which we will have in Lithuania. A new contract we signed with Norwegian company Kongsberg. So we're investing a lot ourselves, but would like to implement also rotational air defense model with participation of other NATO countries.
The number of incursions is still rising, even with all of these measures you're taking. So what needs to be done?
You know, it depends on the incursion. You know, so if you're talking about Shahed drones, so there are tools how when you detect them, there are tools how you can destroy it by a fighter jet or using some more softer arms from the ground. So it's also lessons learned from Ukraine. We know what to do. I mean, so we're investing a lot of nationally, but if you talk about cruise missiles, if you talk about ballistical missiles, different planes, jets, which is coming from adversary. So air defense model with Patriots, SAMT, NASAMS, IRIS-T works well.
Minister, when it comes to supporting Ukraine, EU-NATO partnership is of course very important to coordinate also the efforts. There's a Lithuanian candidate now to become defense commissioner.
Yeah,
how do you think
today, yeah.
So how do you think that Kubilius might influence also this partnership or foster further partnership between you and NATO?
He will influence it very positive way. I'm sure about that because I know him, former prime minister of my country. He's a strong politician. Now he challenged for him to take this portfolio, which is quite just empty, and to put the instruments into that. So many things what he can do: support Ukrainian defense industry with European resources, also to support our eastern flank. We will talk today about counter-mobility measures, military mobility, where we can put more European resources. It will be like a border sharing and sharing with NATO. NATO is more defense, hard defense. EU as a more soft defense. The main aim and challenge for him to give a push to our defense industry. We see a new defense industry lines, but not new factories. We need not evolution, we need a revolution. So this is the main challenge for him. I hope he will succeed.
Some things that were labeled as impossible, like delivering fighter tanks, fighter jets, actually became reality after months of debate. Do you expect a similar thing to happen with the invitee status of Ukraine, starting on this meeting?
Yeah, I have hope, of course. It won't be very easy, but I have hope. I mean, we need to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Well, good morning, Mr. Secretary General and fellow ministers. It has been 10 years since a dozen countries mobilized in the global coalition to defeat ISIS. By the end of 2014, that coalition's membership had grown to more than 60 countries. Today, our coalition is 87 members strong. About a third of those members contributed forces to the coalition's military campaign, Operation Inherent Resolve. I was proud to help lead that fight in uniform as commander of U.S. Central Command. I'm glad to see those valued partners represented here this morning. By working together, we achieved tremendous success against a cruel terrorist adversary that in 2014 had seized a vast swath of territory across Iraq and Syria. We meet here today to salute our success, to reflect on the tremendous sacrifices of this fight, and to ensure greater security and stability in the future. This coalition's work goes on, and we move forward with the benefit of hard-earned lessons of the battle against Daesh. Those lessons come not just from the past decade, but from more than 25 years of resistance to the ideological stream that led to ISIS. So let me highlight 3 lessons that will be key to our ongoing success in global counterterrorism. First, we must remain vigilant and resolute amid the ongoing threat of transnational terrorism. Today's strategic environment is very different from that of 2014. ISIS remains focused on us, but the threat from ISIS and other terrorist groups is now one of several strategic priorities for us. We're tackling a range of key challenges, including bullying from the People's Republic of China and Russia's reckless invasion of Ukraine. But as we do so, we must not lose sight of the threat that ISIS still poses. So this ministerial underscores our shared vigilance and our shared resolve. Second, we have learned that our greatest strength comes from our collective response to ISIS. Like other global terrorist groups, ISIS plots to make us overextend ourselves. If any one of us were to confront ISIS in every region of the globe, we could exhaust our resources and our will, and that would play into their hands. But our coalition has undermined their strategy to outlast us. Together, we've shared the responsibility for the territorial defeat of ISIS in Iraq and Syria. And together, we have the global presence and resources to confront ISIS wherever it may emerge. And I should note that our discussions today about West Africa and Central Asia will focus on expanding our efforts to counter key ISIS affiliates. And that brings me to a third lesson, which is the importance of adaptability. And over the past 10 years, we have continually re-evaluated the threat posed by ISIS and adjusted our strategy to most effectively counter the group's resurgence. Last month, alongside our Iraqi counterparts, we announced the phased transition of Operation Inherent Resolve. We'll talk today about what that process means for the military mission and for our ongoing security partnership with Iraq. Meanwhile, key ISIS affiliates beyond the Middle East pose increasingly dangerous threats, especially ISIS Sahel, ISIS West Africa, and ISIS Khorasan. And just as we've adapted our strategy in the past, I look forward to talking today about coalition plans to counter those rising ISIS factions. For 10 years, this coalition has tackled the scourge of ISIS. Our success stems from our resolve, our commitment to working together, and our willingness to adapt. These core elements will remain at the heart of the next phase of our mission. Thanks again for your leadership and your solidarity, and I look forward to our discussion today. And with that, let me turn to Secretary General Ruta for his opening remarks.
Secretary Austin, thank you for organizing this Defeat ISIS Defense Ministerial. And I'm honored that we can host this important 10th anniversary event here at NATO headquarters. And I believe it is also fitting. NATO is strongly committed to countering terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. 10 years of the coalition is an important reflection point. The coalition has done extraordinary work over the years. And I welcome that 5 years after the defeat of ISIS in Iraq and Syria, the reduction of the ISIS threat in Iraq has led to a planned transition of the coalition's military mission in Iraq to bilateral security partnerships. But we must not take our eye off the ball. The continuing violent attacks by ISIS affiliates and other terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq, as well as across the Sahel, Eastern Africa and Europe, underline that terrorism remains a persistent threat. And it is a threat that is evolving. There is an increase in lone wolf attacks. Terrorists are increasingly using new technologies. And the epicenter is moving southwards into the Sahel, a region which is now accounting for almost half of all deaths from terrorism. At the NATO summit in Washington this July, allied leaders agreed a new action plan on NATO's role in the international community's fight against terrorism. We also appointed a special coordinator for counterterrorism last year and a special representative for the southern neighborhood this year. In the Middle East and North Africa, NATO continues to support our partners in their fight against terrorism. NATO's mission in Iraq is the cornerstone of our engagement in the region. And thanks to close coordination with the United States and all our allies, NATO's mission in Iraq will continue after Operation Inherent Resolve as a non-combat advisory mission to strengthen Iraqi security institutions. Additionally, Jordan, Mauritania and Tunisia already benefit from NATO defense capacity building packages, each with a strong counter-terrorism dimension. Other partners in the region also benefit from counter-terrorism training and exercise opportunities in areas ranging from battlefield evidence to border security and awareness of chemical, biological, radiological and nuclear threats. Beyond our work with individual partners, NATO is engaging through the Mediterranean Dialogue and Istanbul Cooperation Initiative partners to improve civilian military cooperation and support broader efforts in fighting terrorism. And of course, we coordinate closely with other international organizations, including the UN, the EU and Interpol. Dear colleagues, NATO is committed to stepping up its efforts to counter global terrorism in line with the goals and aspirations of this coalition. So thank you, and I look forward to our discussions and consultations today. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General, and I think we can pause now for the media to depart.